So one stock that I've never really talked about on the channel or invested in myself is Boeing, ticker symbol BA. And a lot of you have been asking me about the stock recently and asking me to do a video on them, mostly because of the recent crashes of the 737 MAX airplanes, but also just because you're either invested in them or you were thinking about investing in the company, and so you'd like to hear kind of an update and a full analysis on everything that's going on. Obviously, it's a little weird to talk about the stock at this moment because hundreds of people lost their lives, and of course my thoughts and prayers go out to all the families affected. But I am a stock market YouTuber, so I do talk about companies during good times and also bad times, and right now Boeing is kind of going through, obviously going through some struggles here. So today we're going to do a full analysis. I'll be talking about the stock, the company, their future potential, and I'll let you know if I plan on buying the stock anytime soon. So make sure you hit the like button if you enjoy these kind of stock analysis videos or if you enjoy this one, and let's go ahead and get started. What's up everybody, my name is Ala and welcome to my world of stocks. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to jump right into the stock and then we'll transition to the company and their future potential. Okay, now in the past 3 years, this stock has performed very well, climbing by over 200%. And if we zoom in a little closer, we can see that the stock dropped towards the end of the year with the rest of the market before seeing a huge rally that took them from around $300 a share all the way up to well over $400 a share before coming right back down following the tragic news of a couple airplane crashes. Still, it looks like they may have already bottomed out as they're starting to see a nice little recovery that leaves them trading for over $380 a share at the time of this recording, and they're still up almost 20% year to date and are actually sitting slightly closer to their 52-week high rather than their 52-week low. In any case, we can look at their valuation now and see that they have a market cap of around $220 billion with a solid PEG ratio that factors in future growth of less than 1, or factors in, I guess this is a trailing PEG ratio, but it's less than 1. And they also have a trailing PE of around 21.6 and a forward of around 19.4. While I wouldn't necessarily call this a very cheap stock, their trailing PE is at least around 20% lower than their 2017 high of around 26, and their forward PE is about 35% lower. So that, coupled with the low PEG ratio that factors in growth, I'd say that the price is looking pretty reasonable as long as they have a bright future, which we'll take a look at in a minute. But first, I just want to quickly add that they do pay a really nice dividend that sits at a yield of over 2% with a reasonable payout ratio of just barely over 50% with 8 years of consecutive growth. Perhaps the best thing about it though is that their 5-year growth rate is extremely high at almost 30%. I'd have to imagine that an aircraft company would be hit pretty hard during a recession, which could obviously hurt that dividend, but as it stands right now, it does look very attractive given the impressive earnings growth that we'll take a look at a little later in the video. Okay, let's now talk about why the stock has been struggling after going through a pretty big rally. Well, that almost entirely has to do with their 737 MAX airplane experiencing 2 fatal crashes within a 6-month span. Now, the 737 MAX is Boeing's fastest selling airplane in history with around 5,000 orders from over 100 different customers around the world. But so far, less than 400 of those have actually been delivered. Unfortunately, the MAX 8 crashed in Ethiopia less than 6 months after another crash took place off the coast of Indonesia. Together, the 2 crashes killed 346 people, so pretty, obviously a really big deal there. Keep in mind that there are other variants of the MAX lineup, but I believe that the difference is mostly size and passenger capacity, but at the moment it looks like the MAX 8 is the most popular of the fleet and was the one involved in both accidents. These unfortunate events have now led to a $5 billion order being cancelled by Garuda Airlines that I think consisted of around 50 MAX airplanes, and also led to a criminal investigation by the FBI and an elevated risk of possible lawsuits for damages incurred. And I'm not sure if I'm reading this correctly, but on Boeing's investor relations page, it looks like there may be as many as 55 planes already being canceled, leaving around 4,668 orders for the 737 that are still not filled. I'm not sure if this is strictly speaking of the 737 MAX lineup or if they're still delivering the older 737s, but I believe the MAX lineup is taking over the older generation with improvements to size, space, and fuel efficiency, things that attract both passengers and airlines. Passengers obviously wanting the extra space, and airlines obviously going for the better fuel efficiency. Now, when looking at the reasons why the planes crashed, I don't want to talk about this too much. I will give my opinion on it, but just keep in mind that there may be new information by the time you watch this video because it is all still under investigation. So please do your own research when it comes to this. Don't take this video as gospel or anything like that, or as the absolute truth. I'm just going to share my opinion on the information that I've seen so far based on the reports that I've read. Now, several of these reports have referenced a faulty sensor that is part of their automated system called MCAS, and what that system is supposed to do is that if the plane climbs too sharply, then it tries to prevent a stall by balancing the plane by automatically pushing the front of the nose back down. Well, after the first crash, Boeing and the FAA apparently told pilots to disable the system by cutting its power in case of an emergency. Unfortunately, it looks like some reports are saying that the pilots may have turned the system back on because manual controls were not working as they needed them to, and this ultimately pushed the plane's nose back down, causing the plane to crash. Again, investigations are still ongoing, but it looks like Boeing is working on a software fix that the FAA expects to receive over the coming weeks, and the planes will remain grounded until the fix is considered satisfactory. Again, it's absolutely heartbreaking what happened, but it does look like Boeing is going to face some challenges going forward, especially if those cancellations from Garuda lead to further cancellations down the line. Now, I believe that they may be able to replace some orders with other models in their lineup if it comes to that, but I don't believe that there is anything that is directly comparable to their 737 MAX lineup that they could just kind of replace altogether. Now, some analysts are comparing this to the 2013 issues that Boeing had with their 787 Dreamliner because several of those caught fire and they were grounded for months, but eventually became very popular again. So they're saying that, Boeing might have a similar situation here where their airplanes can become very popular again once they get through this. But I do feel like this situation might be a little different because the 2013 one only had one fatality, and in this scenario, you had hundreds of people lose their lives, so I don't really feel that it's directly comparable. But anyway, some analysts claim that the recent tragedies will have very little negative impacts on their financials, while others are saying that it could cost the company billions of dollars, with Bloomberg reporting that delivery delays and reimbursements to airlines could cost Boeing $2 billion in cash flow each month that the planes are grounded. Although it is assumed that Boeing could quickly make up that money once deliveries pick back up or once deliveries are resumed. In other words, this is looking like a short-term issue for the most part as long as their software fix actually works, safety confidence returns to passengers, and deliveries are resumed. However, their biggest competitor in Airbus has reportedly started to steal some of the market after seeing an increase in orders for their A320 planes that compete directly with the 737 MAX. One such order was for China, worth tens of billions of dollars. However, new reports are claiming that much of that order was actually filled with older or incomplete deals, so it's hard to know how much market share, if any, that Airbus is actually able to steal at this time. It's really kind of an unknown at this time. Still, Boeing is much more than just a commercial aircraft maker. While it is true that they provided over 40% of the commercial aircraft inventory of the United States in 2017, it's also true that they're a leader in defense contracting and also do a ton of business with NASA in building their spacecrafts. When looking at the defense side of things, they build a range of aircraft from attack helicopters and fighter jets to unmanned aircrafts as well. Many of these come fully equipped with a range of weaponry, and Boeing uses their expertise to even sell their services to the government, which is a great source of recurring revenue. The US Air Force is even looking to buy as many as 80 F-15 fighter jets that were originally designed in the 60s and could be worth almost $8 billion in revenue for Boeing. Of course, these fighter jets have been fully upgraded, but it does speak a little to the reputation that Boeing holds in making solid military jets. And when looking at their space work, They've either built or helped with a range of satellites, space transportation vehicles, rocket ships, GPS, space launch systems, and even the International Space Station, which they are the primary contractor for NASA on the station that is a permanently crewed laboratory that is in constant orbit. Of course, this has led to very strong earnings for the company. In 2018, they broke all sorts of records, like record revenue growing by 8% to over $100 billion, which is very, very large. Record net earnings growing by 24% to over $10 billion in profit. Record operating cash flow growing by 15% to over $15 billion, and record GAAP and non-GAAP EPS growing by 29% and 30% respectively. So those are some very nice growth rates there. Now, their last quarter was also impressive, bringing in record revenues that climbed by 14% year over year, so more than double digits, and record GAAP and non-GAAP EPS that climbed 8% each. Guidance for 2019 is looking even better, with the high point of the ranges seeing revenue growth of around 14%, GAAP EPS growing of around 23%, and operating cash flow growing by around 14%. Now, the only thing that doesn't look as incredibly impressive as their earnings is their balance sheet, which, to be fair, I've definitely seen much worse, and they do have at least over $87 billion in current assets, but they also have over $81 billion in current liabilities, over $10 billion in long-term debt, and over $117 billion in total liabilities that is only slightly covered by their total assets. Still, Boeing's future does look very bright, as they're projecting that the addressable market for services alone over the next 10 years is almost $3 trillion, with a compound annual growth rate of 3.5%, while the combined market with defense and space systems and commercial airplanes is estimated at over $8 trillion, with most of that coming from commercial airplane demand. Even their competitor in Airbus is also seeing similar potential here, as they've projected that we'll need over 37,000 aircrafts over the next 20 years, with passenger traffic growing at a compound annual growth rate of 4.4% and total traffic more than doubling over the same time span. Needless to say, Boeing is in a fantastic place to take advantage of an already gigantic market that is actually still growing, and it's going to get bigger because the world is going to become even more globalized. We're still going to be trying to do stuff in space all the time. We're going to be trying to expand into space, and there's always going to be militaries. You're always going to need defense contractors and things like that. So Boeing, I really see Boeing as a long-term investment. I see it as one of those stocks that can bring a lot of stability to a portfolio, and it's one of those stocks that I feel you can just really keep adding to over the long term, and you don't really have to be monitoring the stock, because Boeing is not going to go anywhere, in my opinion. Like, the company is not going to go out of business. We're only going to need them more and more in the future. So as a long-term investment, I see it as a great long-term investment that adds, again, a lot of stability. Now, obviously, we can go through a recession, and obviously they can take hits and all that kind of stuff. But over the long term, there's not really any reason why I would ever say that Boeing is not a buy. Why, and their valuation is not like ridiculously high. It's actually pretty reasonable considering everything that they do. Also, they have a very nice dividend, and I think when you couple that with the fair valuation and a company that is performing very well and still has a very bright future, I think you have a pretty solid long-term investment there. The only issue that I have is that I'd like to get some more clarity on the recent crashes. I'd like to see I'd like to know if the software fix is going to fully address everything, make sure that we don't need any kind of very costly hardware fixes as well. I'd like to see passenger confidence return. I can tell you personally, I would not board those planes at the moment. So I'd like to see passenger confidence return as well. However, unfortunately, I don't think passengers will have much of a choice. I think they'll just kind of be forced to use those planes eventually because they are very popular and they are replacing the older planes. But that's still something I'd like to see. And then I'd also like to see their next couple quarters. I'd like to see their earnings call. I'd like to hear them talk about all these issues. And I'd like to see orders not be canceled. I'd like to not see any more orders be canceled. We already had the one from Garuda. I'd like to see it kind of stop there. But those are all things that I'm looking for. So just to kind of summarize the video, I really like Boeing, but I'd like to see some more clarity. And I'm not investing in them, at least not yet. So that's just kind of to summarize everything. But leave your comments and questions down below. I'd love to read your opinions and thoughts. And if you're bullish, bearish, if you're investing in them, if you're shorting them, I have a feeling that most people are probably bullish on Boeing. But I'd still like to read your comments and read your reasons why and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you leave that down below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.